Hello, this is Vampire, back with part two for street versus sport discussion that I am having with fellow YouTuber Black Silk Black Silk. So I just call him Silk. And okay, so in this one right here, let me start off with a little bit of the actual discussion that we've been having. And this is probably where we actually differ on thoughts, even though we agree on a whole lot of things. So, this part that we differ is this is where I say that sport is not bad on the street. Actually, if I had to go with one, I would say that the sports styles is the way to go for the street. Silk, on the other hand, his point of view, he says that if you go with one, whether it just be martial arts or just street fighting, that's not going to be good enough for the street. Or if you just do sport, then that's also not going to be good enough for the street. So he's saying that you need to do both, which I really understand where he's coming from, and yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. So let me go into a little bit more in depth of at least where I'm coming from, because it's not fair for me to talk for him. But anyway, that's the gist of what I get from conversing with the guy, that he feels that just doing one is not good. That it's going to leave you open for vulnerabilities, and I really think that that's a very good statement. But anyway, like I said, for me, I say if you had to choose one, the martial arts styles that say that it's for street or you know that kind of stuff, I'd say go with sport, right? Combat sports, right? Okay, so the reason why I say that is because to me, every martial arts style that wanted to test themselves, which every style at one point has, historically, the old styles, even the new styles or whatever, and when they want to test themselves, when they want to seriously test themselves, it turns into some kind of sport. So what I'm saying is that combat sports, is necessary to martial arts. It's necessary for street fighting. If To me, it's the ultimate testing ground. Is when you have competition, when you invite other competitors and you go into an arena and you compete. To me, that is the last thing that you do in your training. Okay, it is the furthest that you can go and still keep it legal and still have very, very high stressful situations and areas where you need to adapt against a variety of opponents, under the safety of rules and stuff. Like I said, this is the safest way that you could test yourself in the most hardcore, hardest way possible. That's sport right there. Um, and I think it's basically ridiculous for anyone to say, like a sports style is not going to work or whatever, because, like I said, they're connected. The sports style is connected to the martial arts style, which is the art of warfare. Remember, people back then, they trained for war. I mean, they were on, horseback, or they had spears, all kinds of weapons, and they were using this stuff in the battlefields. So I really think it's silly to say, combat sports is not is going to get you killed in the battlefield or whatever. Like I said, we all know it's a simulation, but it's the best simulation you can get. And not like you can say everybody can practice martial arts, but not everybody can practice sports. I mean, Don the Dragon Wilson said something like doing a fighting sport, it's a luxury to be able to compete, to be a fighter. And I completely agree. Not everyone can do it. You know, because sport is very high level, and it completely focuses on the results. So if you're talking about the street, right, or war, where it doesn't matter about philosophy, forget being injury free, forget learning how to heal yourself, how to teach martial arts, and all the many, many good things that martial arts has to offer that has nothing to do with winning. all that's luxury, and it's thrown out in combat sports, and the focus is 200% on performance, purely on performance, and that is what you need for the street. Okay, when it comes down to it, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to make the right decision? Are you trying to be a better person, to teach the other person how wrong they are, or to protect someone? No, in sport it's all about better performance. That's all that matters. And in the street, in a lot of situations, all right, the street is a very unforgiving place, and many times you don't know what's going on, and in such a scenario, it's the same as sport. It just comes down to performance, just pure performance. All right. So now, last I don't want to say episode, but last video, I talked about a stage where I was just a beginner. Right. I was just a beginner, and I competed against a guy who used a little bit of dirty moves. Right. So now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of actual example of what my true life experience, where I'm more at a closer to an intermediate stage of my training. Now by this time I've met plenty of dirty competitors. I remember this one guy tore my t-shirt up because it was a no-gi grappling situation. So I was wearing a t-shirt. He tore it up, wrapped it around my neck to choke me. And I only had 2 fingers to defend myself from basically passing out. So being a sports competitor at a higher level, you're going to deal with a whole bunch of dirty fighters. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a total misconception to think that sport people are going to stick by the rules. I think NCAA wrestlers are notorious for being some of the dirtiest dirtiest competitors, because it's so competitive. They'll do anything to get an edge over their competition, including, standard is what, to cut weight. Yeah, how dirty is that? You're trying to sneak into another weight division. The cross facing, which is basically almost a strike, or some of the guys do it like a strike, and there are so many ways that they bend the rules. I've seen so many things that they do, like put Vaseline in their hair, and by the time the match goes on later, they become slippery. This was for an MMA Vale Tudo type competition, but all these tricks. Okay, so to think that a sport person is not going to fight dirty is a total misconception. Okay, so anyway, my true life experience. One time when I was training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like I said, this is more closer to my intermediate stage, or let's say a seasoned beginner. During this time, I remember I had a nightmare. It was a dream where I was actually in a street fight in my dream, and I took the guy down, and everything was going well, just like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match. So it was like, oh yeah, this is going great. I put the guy in an Americana arm lock, which is a standard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu basic arm lock. I put him in that move, and it works great. Well, guess what? In this dream, in this street situation, it wasn't working. I was cranking it, nothing. The guy was not in pain or anything. I started to sweat because I didn't know what to do after that. I was like, this is the ultimate move, the submission. I've been training the submission as it's the ultimate move. I'm doing it. What do you do when your ultimate move doesn't work? So it was really scary, and I was suddenly worrying about his friends coming in, and all the other street stuff that you need to worry about, because this guy should have been dispatched of. I should have broken his arm, his shoulder, and that's it. Next guy. I'm ready to fight, but now I can't because it's not working. So that was really, really scary. After I woke up, I decided that because of my narrow-mindedness, because I was trying to master submission so hard, that it was actually leaving me vulnerable. Tony Blauer, I believe, said that it's not good to have your favorite move, because what if it's your opponent's favorite move to counter? So, that was definitely something to think about, and this started to really worry me. So I was like, well, in sparring, I'm getting pretty used to it, and I'm getting pretty good in sparring in class, but in the street, like I said, you break the guy's arm, so what? Some guys can keep going. Some guys get even madder. There's some guys, you punch them in the face, they bleed, and in the dojo it's over or whatever. That was a beautiful hit. You bow out or whatever. But in the street, that might make some guys more pumped up. They're like a piranha when they see blood. They get more fired up, even if it's their own. So that was something I had to change. So it was very interesting to me also in a Zen type concept where it's like the more you're trying to attain something, the less you can get it. So because submissions was my main goal, I decided to truly master submissions, I had to let it go. So what I started doing was in class, I started letting go of submissions. I started pretending as if when I get the lock that it's not working. So I have to switch. Even if I knew I could tap this particular individual out at this particular day and time, I said to myself, what if I'm sick? What if this guy has a previous injury so his arm it's more flexible or whatever? So I started to just imagine that for whatever reason the submission's not working. Or even if it did work, let's say I snapped his arm, I gotta keep going. I have to do more damage. I have to keep fighting. So this is what I learned from the dream. And I started letting go of submissions. And guess what? That made me a better partner because people started becoming less afraid of me because everyone's so scared of being tapped out. The ego's on the line and all that. But if they don't have any of that to worry with, then I right there, they're not scared of me now. So we can start really training, really training. And I started to really practice transitions, and this is this is how you get to the next level. You start to practice transitions, and obviously the frequency of going into transitions now is a lot higher because I'm creating that opportunity. Instead of I get the submission, I tap the guy out, or I have to wait for a guy who's better that I cannot tap out, and then I'm forced to do a transition, and that's when I get my practice of transition. I'm doing transitions all the time now, whether the guy's good enough or not. And then if the guy's not good enough, then I'll stay in that position and try to let them struggle out of it. And as they're struggling out, I feel their force, the way they're going, and I go into a transition that way. So it definitely took me to a much higher level, and I was a lot more comfortable now that if my submissions didn't work, hey, I can switch to all these things, or the fight wasn't over, because a lot of times you get in the habit of the moment the guy taps out, or you're waiting for that tap out, and then you let it go, the fight is over in your mind, but in the street that's not the case. So this was an excellent thing that I learned from my dream. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that no matter what you're training, like in this case I'm training in sport Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the way I tackled it was for street. In my mind it was kind of interesting because I was always thinking that the way I was training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or should I say Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, was in my mind the way Helio Gracie would have taught it. So it's a very street, old school attitude. So I think it all comes down to the way you approach things.